Greetings and good vibes. This is Fireside Chat Q&A with Erika, number 3. I still have a small handful of questions that have been put into the podcast, the Creator Shift podcast, over these last couple months, and I'm going through these questions. This particular chat is going to be focused primarily on screenwriting and a little bit on show running, as showrunner is writer and producer. So all of the questions that I'll be going through this evening will be essentially screenwriting and a little bit of producing. So hopefully that's fun. All right. So what do we have here? First question. How do you approach writing different genres? Well, I write in a lot of different genres. I'm not sure I approach them differently, to be honest. Oh, wow. That is it. Yeah, I don't know if I approach them different. I mean, where they're being distributed to makes a big difference. Which platform, what medium is it in? How are people going to consume it? That's different. I don't think I'm not sure I approach it different if it's different genres, really. I've mentioned before, I do a lot science fiction, fantasy, horror, comedy. Those are kind of the 4 that I write in the most. But I've also done I worked a number of years as a children's theater director, so I've written a fair amount of scripts and stage plays for kids. I've done a fair amount of audio dramas. I've done comic book stuff. But see, those are all mediums. Those are not genres. I don't think I approach them differently. I think my strange, slightly off-kilter brain kind of approaches them the same no matter what the genre is. Well, I don't know if that was an interesting answer, but that's my answer. I don't think I approach them different if they're different genres. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. All right. What roles do themes play in your screenplays? Okay, this is going to be a second weird non-answer for me because I I'll answer. I don't focus on theme. I think themes definitely come out in my scripts, and people say that to me a lot. I don't focus on it, and I certainly don't try to write to themes. Like that's not something that I really think about. Probably because of my distaste over certain properties out there where you know that the person is sort of trying to beat you over the head with the theme. So I just have a big aversion to that. So I don't think I write to theme. I certainly think those sort of things come out. I don't think I write to them deliberately. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, because when I mean, like theme, I think of like, Gene Roddenberry. I grew up absolutely obsessed to Star Trek. And I mean, for him, it was always about, equality and everybody being given a fair chance and, lifting up all of society. Like his idea for Star Trek was that money doesn't exist. There's literally no such thing as money anymore. Everybody takes care of everybody else. There's no poverty. There's no homelessness. Like none of that stuff exists because everybody is working in a, utopian society. Everybody's helping each other out. And so that's one example I would say where that was sort of his overarching theme, and he wrote all of his stories to fit under that theme. And that's an example where I think theme actually worked because he wanted humans to see where we could end up. And so that's why he wrote the stories the way he wrote them, was to show people that we can get there. It is easily, it's possible. It's within our grasp. We can get there. But no, I don't think I don't obsess over theme, and it's certainly not something that I shuffle into my scripts. Although I think themes definitely come out in them. I would say that's the role for them. How do you keep your writing fresh and engaging? I don't know about fresh. I don't know. I don't think that's not a thing that I think of. Engaging, I certainly want it to be interesting. How do you write it to make it engaging? Yeah, to me that's plot and story, which are 2 different things for anybody out there who doesn't know that plot and story are 2 different things. Well, I guess I can't say that without expanding upon that. Story is what happens. What is the story? Your cat stole a lasagna out of someone's window, drug it across the lawn and it ended up somewhere else. And the story is about your silly, mischievous cat that's doing all these things it's not supposed to do. Plot is lasagna gets put in window, cat sees lasagna, cat grabs lasagna, knocks it off the window, drags it across the lawn, throws it in the road. Plot is step by step. What happens, then what, then what, then what, then what. So plot is the plot. It's what happens from beginning to end. Story is more about the emotion and the feeling and how the characters are feeling, how they're acting, how they treat each other, how they speak to each other, what the scenery looks like. The camera work is there to help bring out the story. So the story is about the emotions and the feeling and the engagement between whether it's people or cats and lasagnas, whatever it is. Oh, I don't know. I don't think I think about fresh and engaging. Like, I don't think that's a thing that I think about. Yeah, like I said, 2 non or is that 3 non-answers in a row? I think that might be 3 non-answers in a row. Yeah, I don't think about fresh. I definitely think about engaging, but I also don't obsess about what the audience is thinking about. If it's funny to me, if it's funny to people that I show it to, if it's interesting, if the plot I like my plot moving at a fast clip. I don't like dawdling on things, so I would say, yeah, engaging for me is fast pace. Yeah, I think yeah, that's what I got. What's the role of pacing in your writing process? Oh, this is a bit of an extension from the last one. Again, I don't think about pacing as the story is going on. I don't think about pacing until probably the 3rd or 4th draft, because I don't think you should get obsessed by pacing as you're writing your early drafts. And pacing is the speed that things are going, but that's a really subjective thing to get yourself stuck up on. If you think of like in anything with a battle, think of like anything from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings or any kind of military thing where there's battles going on. There are moments where it's loud and chaos and there's explosions and there's running and there's all this stuff happening, and then you can't go more than a few minutes of that before you need a moment to breathe. And a character is hiding behind a car as bullets are coming past, or someone's on a horse and they've fallen off their horse and they're laying on the floor, or you know 2 spaceships are chasing after each other and it's this pitched battle and all this craziness is happening. And for just a moment one of them is hiding and you just sit there holding your breath, just letting the moment happen, just to kind of slow down the pace, let people breathe, because you can't keep just crazily running constantly, because the audience is going to get exhausted. They're going to get fatigued. The same thing is happening. Like, you have to have fast moments, slow moments, loud moments, quiet moments, touching moments, sad moments, uh, yelling and screaming, and then quiet. Like, you need to be able to go back and forth. But I don't think of any of that until multiple drafts in. Like, that's not something that I let my brain get stuck on. I think about that many drafts down the line. And there's my camera moving around again. Let me freeze it. All right, there you go. The camera should hold still. No? Okay. I do like my op spot, but he does like to move when he's not supposed to. Can you just hold still for a second? There we go. All right. So I prefer it when he's not moving around. What drew you to write science fiction? I just mentioned a few moments ago that I grew up as a huge Star Trek nerd, so watching Star Trek and Star Wars. It was both. I am the nerd that skipped things in high school because Star Trek was on and I wanted to get home to watch it. I was that level of a nerd. Why I liked science fiction, I don't think I could answer that in the slightest. I have no idea why it was that that was the sort of stuff when I was a kid that I liked science fiction. And actually, I would say I probably like fantasy a little bit more. And that's, Princess Bride and like that whole stuff that I actually probably like fantasy slightly more. It was just weird. It was weird. It was out there. Why does my brain like that? I don't have a good answer for you. Wow, this is a thrilling fireside Q&A. This is just like non-answer after non-answer. All right. So what's the next one that I cannot answer? How do you balance scientific accuracy with creative freedom? Oh, I am one of those hyper pedantic people who gets really, really annoyed when science stuff is shown wrong. The amount of movies and TV shows, and it just drives me absolutely crazy. Everything from showing gravity wrong to mistakes in physics, and I lose my marbles when things are just completely inaccurate. Where's an example? Oh, one of my favorite examples, favorite meaning it drives me insane, is the amount of TV shows and movies that I'll say, oh well, this mobile device, this phone, this iPad, this computer, it was kept cold. And so that cold actually helped the battery hold its charge. And, this mobile device was left in the ice 6, 7 years ago, and it still works because the cold kept the charge. Cold kills charges, literally. Try to put a camera outside in the cold, and the battery is going to last a third of what it normally would. Cold kills charges. Electricity flows because electrons are moving from one side to the other. Cold slows that down. Cold kills batteries. It doesn't extend batteries, like that sort of thing. I'm pulled completely out of the story. It drives me crazy. How do I balance that? It's very rarely am I going to let the story be more important than the scientific accuracy. A lot of stories out there, as I've just mentioned, TV shows and movies are more interested in the storytelling, and they don't care if the science is wrong. It drives me crazy, so I can't do that. So for me, it needs if I'm going to deliberately not follow something, it has to be for a reason. But I see the scientific constraints on things as something interesting to write around. I don't see that as oh well, I don't really care. I just want to write the story the way I want to write it. So I see that as like a fun thing to write around, and not something to just ignore because I want to write something the way I want to write it. What are your main sources of inspiration for your writing? I watch a lot of television shows, which is funny because I've not owned a television in about 25 years. But I would say for me, probably TV. I download and watch a lot of stuff online. So I would say that's where I get most of mine from. I read a fair amount. I listen to a lot of audiobooks though, so I get a lot from that way. I get some from movies. I mean, I'm a filmmaker. I love watching movies as well. I love watching shorts, watching stuff on YouTube, finding other places that shorts are coming out. I also, with my heavy theater background, I really like going to watch live performances. So anytime I can go out, whether it's a play or stand up or improv or something that's happening on stage, I love being able to see things on stage. And I love music as well. So being able to listen to music, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say music directly inspires my writing, but it helps my mood. So if I'm writing something upbeat, I could listen to something upbeat, or it could just put me in make me happy, make me excited, make me pumped up so that I want to sit down and write. So I would say that that's an inspiration as well. Yeah. How how do you address the evolution of societies and cultures in your work? Wow. Well, I don't wanna retread on an earlier answer, but, I mean, I almost feel like the Roddenberry Star Trek utopian future is probably a strong answer for that. Evolution of societies and cultures in your work. I think about this a lot. I would say, to the one of the earlier answers that I didn't actually answer about theme, what it means to be human is one thing that goes through every single thing I've ever done. There's not a single thing I've done that's not questioning what it is to be human. And um and what does it mean to be human in current society? What might it mean to be human in a future society on Earth? What it might mean to be human in a different solar system where you are the only human being and you're surrounded by alien life forms. What does it mean to be human in those situations? And a tiny spoiler, which isn't a full spoiler, one of the projects I'm working right now where the main character is lost in a different galaxy surrounded by alien life forms, and very, very slowly the character is becoming biologically less and less human. And what does being human look like in that situation? The society, meaning the alien society that she's in, how is she influencing them with herself? How are they influencing her? Yeah, I would say this particular thing I address in almost everything I do. All of my stories, science fiction or not, audiobooks, comic books, pretty much everything I do has a really, really, really heavy amount of this question in it. And yeah, a lot of that comes from Roddenberry. I'm also a really big fan of Joe Straczynski and the whole Babylon 5 universe, and this plays up that. And it's kind of funny that the Star Trek universe is very much utopian, whereas the Babylon 5 universe, first of all, it's much more closer to present day, where Star Trek is 3, 400 years into the future. Babylon 5 is more like 150, 200 years in the future, so it's closer to now. But it is very much extended from what our society currently is. The Babylon 5 universe hasn't gotten to the point of utopia. Very much all of our same human issues now are presented there. So yeah, I would say some of the seminal works in my personal obsessive life all deal very much with this. Yeah, this is, I would say it's probably one of my cornerstone storytelling techniques, probably what I would say. How much do you focus on audience feedback in shaping the direction of a show? Oh, uh, my answer is gonna be almost 0. And I don't wanna say that I don't care what the audience thinks, but to a degree, I don't care what the audience thinks. And that I don't mean that in a, like, a rude, dismissive, just screw the audience type of thing. I mean it more in a, I think you can get lost when you're obsessing over how the audience is gonna react to something. And we're fully 15 years into social media ruling our existences, that if someone doesn't like something, you're gonna see, depending on the size of your audience, you're gonna see dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of people complaining about what they feel like their characters would and would not do in your story. And I'm not saying ignore that. I am saying, I am not going to, I'm not going to let that shape where I think the story should go, because just every little thing that comes up and you try to address it in the next episode, the next series, the next season, the next whatever, you're going to spend all of your time trying to please everybody, and then you're going to please nobody, especially not yourself. So if I like it, if I like the direction it's going, if the people I'm working with, whether that's co-writers, producers, actors, if it's something that we're doing live, it, yeah, I would like to think that the audience likes it, and if the audience likes it and the project does well, fantastic. If the audience absolutely hates it and I totally missed the mark, then it's gonna have very, very few views, and that's just the way it's gonna be. But I can't let the audience tell me what I should and should not be doing, because then I'm doing it's a disservice to myself, and I'm not putting anything good in the story because I'm just obsessed about, "Oh, no. What are they gonna say on Twitter? What are they gonna say on Instagram? What are they gonna say here?" And, like, you've just lost yourself at that point, so focus almost 0. Almost 0, and I kinda at least for me, that's kinda the way that it's gonna have to go. How do you adapt your writing style to fit the tone and style of each platform? Yeah, see, I still kinda feel like that's a platform. Mm, I would kinda need to know what the length of it is, which is a little bit platformy, but, TikTok, it's gone up to 3 minutes now, or is it longer? Like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basis of a lot of what I do is how to tell the story best inside each platform. But that yeah, that depends on so many things, which is why it's sort of hard to answer. Is it long form? Is it short form? Are you doing an unboxing video? Are you doing a video series? Are you doing behind the scenes videos? So, yeah, they all kinda need to be adjusted to what the platform is, but I would have to go through each variation in each platform to kinda really give a more in-depth answer, but yeah, you do very much have to adapt your writing style. Okay, I'll answer it as in the one of the hardest transitions I had to do was the first time that I started writing specifically for the audio format. I was brought in to a podcast. They had done a whole first season, had a really good reception by the audience. They were moving into the second season, and their main character was female, and there was a lot of female characters in it, and it was an all male writing staff, so they were trying to bring in other people to kind of help flesh out the writing staff, and I was one of the people that came in to help with the second season, and adjusting my writing, which at that exact moment in time had been primarily stage writing and screenwriting, adapting it to an audio only. It was a science fiction choose your own adventure. So we would do a couple episodes and then leave a cliffhanger and let the audience vote which direction we went with it. But adjusting my writing style, which for anybody that doesn't know, generally speaking, when you're talking about theater, you're talking mostly about the dialogue and what people are saying. Now, theater is still very visual, but most like if you think of theater sets, most of them are, impressionistic. It's just an impression of what the background is. That could be a cityscape, that could be a living room, that could be the inside of a car, that could be a volcano, that could be a spaceship, right? It's generally sort of impressionistic. You just have to excuse me, you have to give a lot of grace to what the visual look is. And in theater, you're focusing on the dialogue, you're focusing on what they're saying, and just a little bit on the movement and all of that. In television, somewhat, film predominantly, it's the visual. It's all about the camera angles, where the camera is going, what the movements are, what the lighting is. Certainly still a focus on the audio. If the audio is bad, people aren't going to watch it. But theater is a little more audio based. Film, generally speaking, is much more it's where you get the word cinematic from. Like that's literally where that word from, cinema, in this case, the camera placement. So it's very, very visual. Moving to an audio only format, I was really struggling, and I would come up with 8 pages of a script, and I'd be really proud of them, and I'd show them off, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I mean, generally the story is good, but we'll kinda have to shape things better." And working with one of the writers, it was the amount of times that you would have to stop and you would have to put exposition into the dialogue, because otherwise there was no way to understand what's going on. Like the scenes, especially because it was science fiction and the characters were on a different planet and they didn't know what was going on. Every time they go to a new scene or they're in a new location, you have to describe what everything looks like. You have to describe the animals, you have to describe the scenery, the air, the colors, like you have to describe all that, but you have to put it casually into the dialogue, which is exposition. And that was a really difficult thing for me to do because with all of my screenwriting, I'd gotten used to not doing any exposition at all in the dialogue. But now you would have to say, don't step on that. Like you would have to put that sort of thing into the dialogue to make people understand who are just listening what is happening. And it gave me this real insight into what it was like writing for radio, because for decades radio was the primary medium. Even when television started to get big, radio was still much more important up until about the point where television, what was it, the mid late 60s, I believe, when television switched to color. And it was at that point that television really started surpassing radio. But yeah, that was a difficult transition, writing solely for audio when I had focused so much of my writing time on visualizing things and making sure what people are seeing carries so much of the story and not necessarily the dialogue. That was a big change for me. Um, how do you handle conflicts or differing opinions among the writing team or production staff? Carefully. I mean, I try to keep lines of communication open as much as possible, for one, and I wanna make sure that everybody feels heard, and whether that's writing team or production staff. I want everyone to feel like they have, they have some skin in the game. They have a little bit of, authority in whatever their particular role is, and, everyone's voice is heard. I never want anyone to feel like they can't say something. Someone has a great idea, I wanna hear it, I don't care who they are. Differing opinions, I mean, it always comes down to sort of who's in charge, and that person, especially anytime that I've been a showrunner, that person being able to just balance what the overall picture is. If it's we're in a writers meeting and 3 people pitch something, sometimes I'll take the moment to say, "I think that's a great idea. I don't know if it fits in this particular situation, but let's hold on to that idea. Let's put it on the other whiteboard, and when we're going along, if we get to a point where we're stuck, we'll look at some of our ideas that are sitting over here. So I don't quite think it works here, but I like where you were coming from that. And I think you came to that conclusion because this, and this happened, and that was a great conclusion that you came to. It just doesn't quite fit here." So I'm pretty good about sort of shaping that sort of thing. At the same time, you don't wanna be crapping on someone. If someone has ideas and 4 times in a row you shut them down, they're gonna shut down, and they're just not gonna respond anymore. So there may be a few times here and there where I think, "I don't think this idea is great," but what I'll say is, I'll sometimes say, "Okay, let's brainstorm with that," or sometimes I'll say, "I don't quite know what that works, but let's play with it. Let's put it on the board, and then let's extend that out. How would that work for the rest of the episode if we did go that direction?" And sometimes you only get 3 or 4 steps down that path, and then the person goes, "Oh, actually, I don't think that works." And you go, "Oh, yeah, well, that was a great idea. Keep the ideas coming. Let's go back to where we were." And then you just go back and you keep going. So it's certainly a balancing game. You need to know your people. You need to know how many times you can say, "I don't quite think that'll work," and when you need to go, that may or may not work. Put it on the board. Let's brainstorm it." And then occasionally you're the one who's wrong. They put something up and we start brainstorming and you go, "Oh, that actually got us where we were going even faster than the way we were going. We're going with that." So balance, making sure everyone feels heard, making sure everyone has the ability to throw out their ideas and just play around with it, because just because you're in charge doesn't mean you have all the best ideas, excuse me. So yeah, just let people throw out ideas and figure out which ones work, keeping the overall storyline in mind is really the hardest part. So how do you prioritize and manage multiple storylines within a show? I was literally just talking about the umbrella and the overall story. So as long as your A story, we're going to say A story, as long as your A story is strong, I think you can play around a lot with your B line and your C line. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, the A storyline means the most important. It's whoever your main character or main characters are, whatever's going on with them, and then there's usually one subplot with a different character, or maybe your main character who's doing something outside the main storyline. There's often a B plot, and occasionally there's even a C plot, which is an even further to the side character who has something that's going on that could last the length of the episode. That could be a few episodes in a row, or it could be an entire season. I strongly believe if your A line is strong, you can use your B line and especially your C line to have some fun. Do something a little goofy, do something a little, I don't know if I want to say out of the genre of whatever it is, but you can play around quite a bit more with that sort of thing. Often your B line and your C line will have either a tone or a theme or something that reflects what your A line is. And if you're writing a really in-depth, like tightly intricate storyline, they're all going to need to connect. Occasionally, I think it's kind of funny when the B line or the C line doesn't connect at all. It's this weird thing that just sort of happens. I think the weird theme, you can already tell, goes through most of my writing. I think it's kind of funny when they are a little bit off and they don't necessarily connect. But in a tightly, intricately woven storyline, they'll have some kind of reflection to what the A storyline is. If you kind of think in superhero movies, you've got the hero and you've got the villain, and a huge amount of the time when you have the best hero and villain combos, it's because the villain's powers, like whatever they are either exactly opposite what the heroes are, or they're complementary to what the heroes are. So the hero has this skill. If the hero has this skill, the villain has this skill. And those two skills will either match perfectly or they'll not match perfectly. And that's where all the tension comes from. So often the B line and the C line reflect the A line. I also think it's kind of fun when they're off in their own direction doing their own thing. But that's just me. How do you approach casting decisions and working with actors to bring characters to life? I am fortunate to say let me think. I want to say one. Yeah, I would say in my entire life, from being a teenager all the way up into my professional life, I think I've only regretted one casting decision I've ever made. Only once have I gone, "Oh, I made a mistake with this person, but we're in this, and now I kinda have to go with this." I do tend to hit the nail on the head as far as casting goes, and normally I don't have a problem with that. So casting decisions, I can't even tell you why that is, because I don't do a huge amount of background checking on people. If someone shows up, if they've nailed their audition, if I've chatted with them in their audition, given them some redirects, they seem excited, they seem happy, they seem like they can handle whatever the workload is. They seem to respond to what I'm saying well. I'm pretty much good to go. Actors. Yeah, and I mean, bringing characters to life. See, I think that's a big combination of both the actor and the director. And as long as the two of you have a good working relationship, I think you could play around with stuff. And on set, I like I like shooting the way the script says. Get one or two real solid takes, and then some actors like to do a little improv, some absolutely don't. If it's an actor that likes doing some improv, as long as we've nailed the way that it is in the script, I'm totally open to veering off a little bit, doing some improv, seeing if there's any other ways of approaching it, taking the other actors' comments into account. If the camera operator's like, "Hey, I think I see something. Maybe we should try it." I'm totally fine with that. So I like having a little bit of improv, a little bit of wiggle room, as long as we've done a good job of handling what it says in the script, because the script is written in a way to keep, the whole storyline concise. As long as that's done, I'm fine playing around with it a little bit, and as it says, bringing the character to life. All right. That was a little over 30 something minutes, so we're good there. Thank you so much. Keep the questions coming in, and stay tuned for the next episode of Creator Shift podcast.